fear can be an enslaving thing, but it's through humility that we can be delivered from our fears, and through allowing the Lord to grow humility in us so that we're not afraid of those things that really can't hurt us because we're very secure in the Lord. And in the second week of Advent, we want to look at those fears that might enslave us. And our saint today is Blessed Bartolo Longo, who had many fears, justifiable fears, it would seem, from a secular point of view. And we'll get some help and inspiration. And the Lord wants to deliver us from these fears. And if we cooperate with him, he will. Again, this is this litany of humility that we've started for Advent. Now we're in the second week. It's an anointed litany. And as you pray it, and as you open to our Lord's grace working in your soul, you will see every time you pray it that certain fears and certain desires to be delivered from are you're making progress. You can tell. It won't give you such a check in your spirit. Here we go. From the fear of being humiliated, deliver me, Jesus. From the fear of being despised, deliver me, Jesus. From the fear of suffering rebukes, being calumniated, being forgotten, being ridiculed, being wronged, and from the fear of being suspected, deliver me, Jesus. Basically amounts to a fear of rejection and human respect. And it does drive so much of what we do. Some of the worst decisions we've ever made in our life were driven because of these fears. Bartolot Longo had to deal with all those fears. You know, he's mid-19th century, Italy. Spiritism is really going rampant in Europe, and he's college age. He goes off to university, and he's really a truth seeker. He's looking for the truth, but he finds it in all the wrong places because the universities, for the most part, at that time in history, hated the Catholic Church. They particularly hated the Pope. There were a few good professors here and there, and there's one, Professor Pepe, who is instrumental in helping him along, but he gets down the wrong road. He becomes, through seances and exposure, eventually a satanic priest, and he sells his soul to the devil, and he almost goes insane as a result. He just isn't sleeping. He's got a wild look. He can't think. It's destroying his life, as Satanism will do. So Professor Pepe, you know, he was a very holy man, and he was praying for Bartolo. And he also had a team of people praying for Bartolo. And then he sends him at one pivotal time, he sends him to see a priest, and Bartolo's like, okay, I'll do it. And anyway, before long, within a month or so, Bartolo has changed his life. He is now a practicing Catholic and freed from spiritualism. He's living a life that serves others, rosary groups, just really trying to do the right thing and make amends for the bad life that he had led up to that point. So anyway, he graduates from university and he's a lawyer. And there's a friend that needs some work done in the city of Pompeii. So he goes there, and upon being there, he goes for this walk, and he's disturbed about these people because they're a little bit like him, like he was before he became a satanic priest, just mixed up, you know, like didn't know what was right and wrong, might consult a witch doctor or use occult practices as well as go to mass. You know, they just are lost. And so he's pondering them. And then he receives an attack from the devil. The Lord allows him to receive thoughts in his mind that make him believe that his pact with the devil is not dissolved and that the devil owns his soul. And he reaches a point of despair to endure this idea and have it implanted in his mind so that he believed for a while that it was true, almost brought to a suicidal point. And so he calls out to Mother Mary because he had learned, you know, from the priest that it helped him convert a Dominican, and he is a Dominican lay himself at this point. He had learned that if anybody promotes the rosary, you know, they won't be lost. So he says, I'm going to do it. I'll promote the rosary here in the city of Pompeii. So anyway, that ends up determining the trajectory of the rest of his life. He stays there to do that. And there's a shrine that's built, and there's orphanages made, and catechesis, and all kinds of beautiful cultural things that happen when the church comes alive in an area, and it brings the culture forward in a beautiful, good way. But that's not where these fears came in. I mean, there was some fear there, but the fear are the things that he suffered afterwards, that he would endure, and he had to not be afraid of them, or he would have done something different. The shrine of the Blessed Virgin of the Rosary of Pompeii was, under his guidance, and he was the one that was moving it forward. Suddenly, he was not trusted, and he couldn't have anything to say or do about it. He couldn't handle the money or have a say in how things went. So that would have been really hard to take, I think, for anybody. Like, wait a minute, this is my project. But the truth is, Mary saved him from the devil. He was saying yes to her. So he put his eyes on her, and he set himself aside, and it continued. Interesting thing, there's a print apostolate too that went out monthly with the newsletter, and reported through this shrine and this print apostolate and all the beautiful work that he did, there are recorded over 1,000 documented miracles every year. It was beautiful how the church was flourishing despite this scandal with him that wasn't even real. It was created probably through jealousy of somebody else, but he had to let that go. Another thing that happened is that later on, Pope Leo XIII, now he's kind of on our radar because we now have Pope Leo who took the name after Leo XIII. But Pope Leo XIII, now when Bartolot and this countess who was helping him with the projects, when they were a little older, there was just, people started making rumors about them, and I believe she was a widow. She had adult children. But at the Pope's urging, Bartolot married her so that there wouldn't be a scandal because they had to work together so much. So there was another humble thing that he did. He acquiesced. He went along with what the Pope was asking. And even though she was really good with helping on projects and money, she was a very difficult person, and she was very difficult to be married to. I mean, they had a Josephite marriage. There was no intimacy there, but she made life hard for him just because of her personality. And then when she dies eventually, her children treat him terribly. They don't even let him have any of the money to live on. It's ridiculous, what he endured. But I think is the most beautiful thing, besides the thousands of miracles that happen, I think the most beautiful thing about his humility and the fruit that went on for years and years. And I know Bartolot would never say, oh, I'd trade that. I'd trade away that hardship and that trial and give up the fruit. No way, because the fruit was this. He had homes and apprenticeships and training for sons of incarcerated men. Now, in his time, it was believed that kind of an incarcerated man who fathered a child, that child would be no good, that it went through the genetics, that you couldn't rehabilitate them. And so when he made these apprenticeships and these training centers and homes and orphanages for them, the papers wrote scandalous things about how he was going to contaminate and ruin this flourishing culture in Pompeii, and everybody was like against it. And he just, see, if he had cared what they thought. I mean, this was in the news. How would you like newsprint about you? It's one thing in the church and people talking, oh, maybe she's having an affair with the countess, or, or, oh, maybe he's pocketing some of the money. Those were wicked rumors, and, they were just wicked rumors. But to have the newspapers and the social media say, you are taking care of these boys and you are going to bring us all down because of it, because they're just going to infiltrate the culture. They cannot be saved. Here's a quote from one of the newspaper articles. The moralists cannot approve. The sociologists must protest. This new shelter in the Valley of Pompeii threatens to become a nest of delinquents. And so he had to just not care about his reputation. They were just slandering him right and left, and he knew what the Lord was asking him to do, and he had his eyes on the Lord, and he knew life was going to be hard. But you know what? 15 years after the first apprenticeship was created and the orphanage created and educating these boys and getting them off the street, 15 years after that, one of the first graduates became a priest. And he came back to the shrine to celebrate his first Mass as a priest. Many of them went to the United States, they immigrated, and they had productive, good lives. But if they had been left on the streets, that's not what would have happened. So, would Bartolot Longo give up his reputation to affect these boys and their families and generations to come in a positive, good way? And all of this was not just social work. He taught them to love Jesus, and they adored him. He taught them Jesus. That was the great treasure he had. And he taught them, if you have this Jesus, and you have Mother Mary, and you have the Rosary, you don't need to fear these things. You don't need to fear being slandered, because all that matters is what God thinks about you. You don't need to fear being rejected, because the one who matters has welcomed you into his family as a son or daughter of God. This is the freedom that humility gives us. So we can ask ourselves and ask our Lord and our guardian angel, Mother Mary, to reveal to us where we fear being forgotten, unappreciated, wronged, all the things from the litany. Then ask for the grace to surrender that fear to the one who sees everything in secret, knowing that that is the most secure place to be.